Blessed are the eyes that see what you see. For I tell you, many kings and prophets have desired to see what you see, and have not seen it. To hear what you hear, and have not heard it. I thank you, Father, for hiding these things from the learned and the wise, and revealing them to the innocent and the simple.
Impassable roads, submerged cars, paralyzed public transport, and flooded villages. Luzhou City in South China's Guangxi Zhuang Autonomous Region seemed to be a water world. The rains showed no sign of stopping, and some areas received an intense rainfall of about 100 millimeters within an hour. That has made rescue operations difficult and also triggered local weather authorities to issue a red weather alert for rainstorm. In China's southern Guangdong and southwestern Guizhou provinces, flash floods have forced mass evacuations. Continuous rain forced over 100 villages in Guizhou's Xinyi city to evacuate to safety. Meanwhile, Zerong Township was worst hit as many villages living in low-lying areas got trapped by floods. As of Monday, the township was still inundated, and in some areas, flood waters rose 2 centimeters per hour. Those who have been rescued have been advised to prepare for another evacuation. Meanwhile, torrential rains also battered most parts of South China's Guangdong province, swelling rivers and forcing evacuations in Lianzhou city. China's weather service forecasts more rains over the next 2 days and is advising the public to prepare against the floods and another rain-triggered disasters.
In the wee hours of June 12th, 29-year-old Omar Mateen, a registered Democrat, unleashed a jihad attack on the Pulse nightclub in Orlando, Florida, killing 49 and wounding 53 in the worst mass killing event in U.S. history.
The amount of gunshots, and you were trying to find out, I believe that there was more, yes, because...
So you believe there's more than one gunman there?
I believe that.
Omar Mateen, a U.S.-born citizen, had gradually self-radicalized. He had abused his first wife, yet no charges were filed. Unhinged behavior was reported by co-workers, but ignored because he was Muslim. And Mateen was interviewed by the FBI 3 times, but never put on any kind of list. He also traveled to Saudi Arabia twice to visit Mecca. Mateen worked as a security officer for a major DHS contractor as counter-jihad reports. The Orlando nightclub terrorist who pledged allegiance to ISIS worked almost a decade for a major Department of Homeland Security contractor, raising alarms that ISIS sympathizers and agents have infiltrated the federal agency set up after 9/11 to combat terrorists. G4S uses fortified buses to transport hundreds of thousands of illegal immigrants from city to city and from cities to the U.S.-Mexican border. But earlier this month, Judicial Watch revealed G4S has been quietly moving and releasing van loads of illegal aliens away from the border to interior American cities. The security contractor also provides security guards and other security services for 90% of U.S. nuclear facilities. If anyone was a perfect candidate for being put on a watch list by the FBI or the DHS, it was Omar Mateen. Even his father is suspect, who pretended to be president of Afghanistan and also said gays should be killed. And the local imam in the Islamic community Mateen was a part of called for the death of gays.
Death is the sentence. I mean, look, there's nothing to be embarrassed about this. Death is the sentence.
The same mosque that Hillary Clinton herself blocked from being investigated. Kit Daniels writes, the Fort Pierce Islamic Center, where Mateen worshipped several times a week, was under investigation by both the FBI and the DHS as early as 2011 for ties to a worldwide Islamic movement known as Tablighi Jamal, which was linked to several terrorist organizations. But according to WorldNet Daily, the investigation was shut down under pressure from the Clinton-ran State Department and DHS's Civil Rights and Civil Liberties Office out of fear of offending Muslims, according to recently retired DHS agent Philip Haney. And now, Omar's brother-in-law is mocking our Second Amendment rights with his liberal swill posted on social media. Mateen's brother-in-law, Mustafa Abbasin, even went so far as to call Trump a Nazi and a racist. Breitbart reports, based on 2014 data, the most recent available data from the Department of Homeland Security, the number of green cards issued to Middle Eastern countries increased by 32%. The number of green cards issued to Afghan migrants increased by 379% in the course of that single year. Hillary Clinton has made clear that under a Clinton presidency, these numbers will grow substantially higher. Based on the minimum numbers Clinton has put forth thus far, the U.S. will resettle 730,000 permanent migrants from the Muslim world during her first term alone, adding up to be larger than the population of Washington, D.C.
Today marks the most deadly shooting in American history. The shooter was apparently armed with a handgun and a powerful assault rifle. This massacre is therefore a further reminder of how easy it is for someone to get their hands on a weapon that lets them shoot people in a school, or in a house of worship, or a movie theater, or in a nightclub.
It only took 3 minutes for Obama to basically blame the American people. What would a real president have said? Take President Eisenhower, for instance. He would have simply told Americans to arm themselves under the Second Amendment. And now Obama has the nerve to call it homegrown terrorism.
As far as we can tell right now, this is certainly an example of the kind of homegrown extremism that all of us have been so concerned about for a very long time.
Obama, there is nothing even remotely resembling American values or culture in this attack. Stop using homegrown terror for your sound bites. You're clearly blaming the American people for beliefs that originate in the Middle East. They are not grown here at home. This new benchmark of the brutal slaughter of Americans on American soil is a clear indication that the FBI, DHS, and federal government are not only unable to do the job our tax dollars are funding, bottom line, they are growing the radical Islamic invasion. How about that for homegrown, Obama? Obama and anyone previously responsible or currently protecting this agenda that has breached our national security should immediately be arrested.
The transformation of America has been in the full swing ever since 2008. Now, there's no question, we got a hell of a job ahead of us. With the Muslim Brotherhood penetration in every one of our national security agencies, including all our intelligence agencies, and as been reported by some, our lead intelligence agency headed by a Muslim convert, this is not going to be an easy task.
The longer these Saudi Arabian lackeys are in power, the more Americans will be slaughtered. Stop the madness. Arm yourselves, America. Aggressively protect your First and Second Amendment rights. The globalists are bringing a war to your backyard.
The Orlando attack showed again that ISIS is here, in America. Although the way President Obama talked Sunday in his response to the attack, the message may not have reached the Oval Office.
We've reached no definitive judgment on the precise motivations of the killer. The FBI is appropriately investigating this as an act of terrorism.
But what kind of terrorism? President Obama did not use the words Muslim or Islamic terrorism, even though the killer shouted Allahu Akbar and called 911 to say he was with the Islamic State. And Islamic State Radio called the shooter Omar Mateen one of the soldiers of the caliphate in America. Republican Senator Jeff Sessions warns there will be more attacks, in part because of the president's reluctance to call Orlando what it is.
And it's not stopping, as we see apparently today. More of these attacks are coming. It's a real part of the threat that we face, and if we can't address it openly and directly, and say directly that there is an extremist element within Islam that's dangerous to the world and has to be confronted, we need to slow down and be careful about those we admit into the country.
FBI Director James Comey says ISIS has created a terrorist diaspora that flows out of Syria and Iraq to the west hardened fighters looking to kill people. The Wall Street Journal pleaded, "Can we finally drop the illusion that the jihadist fires that burn in the Middle East don't pose an urgent and deadly threat to the American homeland?" And National Review said, "The Islamic terrorist war on us has returned to American shores, and it will continue here as long as we refuse to exercise the tactics necessary to stamp it out."
Christina Grimmie, the 22-year-old finalist on The Voice, known for her Christian faith, was shot and killed in a separate incident this weekend in Orlando. Police say Grimmie was signing autographs after her performance Friday when a gunman opened fire.
Just immediately, her brother Marcus Grimmie tackled the suspect to the ground. Shortly after that, the suspect killed himself.
Grimmie's publicist released a statement about her death saying, "Christina has passed away and went home to be with the Lord."
The quiet residential suburb of Maganville, about 55 kilometers northwest of Paris, now the scene of a brutal double murder. A police commander and his partner were stabbed to death at their home. Their 3-year-old son survived. The attacker was identified by police as Larossi Abala, a 25-year-old Frenchman of Moroccan origin who had a previous conviction for jihad recruitment activities. Authorities say he had recently pledged allegiance to the ISIL militant group.
Another bloody day in Syria as twin explosions rocked the capital suburb of Sayyida Zainab. This is the third attack of its kind on the same district in 2016. Sayyida Zainab is home to one of the most holy shrines for Muslim Shiites in Syria and the constant target of repeated rebel attacks. Saturday's attacks were carried out using a combination of a car bomb and suicide attackers, according to the Syrian state news agency Sana, that also reported that several people were killed and dozens others were wounded. But the death toll is likely to rise, according to a local medical source that spoke with CCTV, as many of the injured, according to our source, are in a critical condition. ISIL claimed responsibility for the attacks in a statement published on the radical group's news agency A'maq. The Syrian government also issued a statement condemning the attacks and condemning countries like Saudi Arabia, Qatar and Turkey for what the statement called brutal massacres. The Syrian government accuses Turkey, Qatar and Saudi Arabia of supporting radical groups and rebels in Syria. Shortly after the attacks, tighter security measures were imposed throughout Damascus, as many fear that similar attacks could hit the heart of the Syrian capital.
3 of NATO's biggest military powers have agreed to each command battalions to be stationed in 3 Baltic countries and Poland. Canada has been touted as a possible leader of a 4th battalion. The plan is to counter any Russian show of force similar to that deployed in Crimea 2 years ago.
That should send a very strong signal of unity and resolve and our determination to defend the Baltic states and Poland in the face of continued Russian aggression.
The deployment of about 4,000 troops backed by rapid reaction forces represents NATO's biggest military build-up in Eastern Europe since the end of the Cold War. Russia's President Vladimir Putin responded by ordering snap checks on combat readiness across his armed forces. The Kremlin had already complained that the deployment of 4 battalions breaks a long-held agreement with Washington not to station forces near its border. The latest deployments are part of a broader NATO deterrent force to be approved in Warsaw next month. It includes storing equipment ready for an attack and a highly mobile spearhead group backed by NATO's 40,000-strong rapid reaction force.